Okay, I think we're live now. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. Hey, Boris. Hey, Jens. Good to see you both. Let's take a minute to introduce ourselves. Boris, let's start with you.
Yes, good morning. My name is Boris Gebhardt, Chief Product Owner of the ABAP platform at SAP. And I think now with our cloud, we have a really good topic for our session today. And with that, over to Jens.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Jens Weiler from SAP, lead architect for Steampunk and ABAP Cloud.
Yeah, so I'm Rich Heilman. I'm with the developer advocate team at SAP. And so guys, we just had Tech Ed a couple weeks ago. We heard something about ABAP Cloud during both Jürgen's keynote and the day 2 keynote. And then, of course, afterwards, we heard some chatter throughout the community on this topic, and lots of ABAP developers, wanted to get some more details. And, we thought it was a good idea to jump on a live stream and clear up any doubts. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into it, right? So, Boris, what is this ABAP Cloud that we're hearing about?
Yes, Rich, thanks for that, for the intro. To make it shorter, so the short answer to that would be ABAP Cloud is our new ABAP development model, which is optimized for S/4HANA and for the cloud. So during the last decades, we had the very successful classic ABAP development model, SAP, Jumbo, and all that stuff, which we use especially on premise. And now in S/4HANA and in the cloud, we have now ABAP Cloud. But don't panic. So especially the ABAP developers who are on the call may think, okay, now again, a new development model pops up. And it's already hard to understand RAP, CDS, perhaps ABAP in Eclipse and all that stuff. But don't be scared. ABAP Cloud is more or less an umbrella for all the different new capabilities which we added to the ABAP during the last decade, especially for S/4HANA and especially for the cloud. And now I will use the next, let's say, 5 minutes to explain the evolution from classic ABAP to ABAP Cloud so that you get what we mean with ABAP Cloud. And I start really from the very basic, because I'm not sure if only ABAP experts are on the call, just to ensure that we catch up all attendees. So first, ABAP is really about business applications. That's the purpose of ABAP. That means we have the ABAP programming language, and even more important, the complete ABAP platform, which is used to build, to maintain, to support, to operate, and to run business applications at scale. And second, ABAP is really, really crucial and important for the business, since the big SAP application, especially SAP's ERP, which is running the business of the biggest companies of the world, is based on ABAP. So ABAP is more or less underneath the business which is running in the companies day by day. So that's really a big impact behind ABAP. And third, I know ABAP is out there for decades now, but we always added new innovations to be state of the art, to get new innovations in which are needed in the business applications. So think about our objects, think about our Eclipse-based ABAP development tools, which we added 10 years ago, by the way. Think about ABAP Unit, ABAP test-driven frameworks, and so on to support test-driven development and all that stuff. But with the launch of SAP S/4HANA, I think this was 2015, yes, the next generation business suite, we have seen a massive acceleration concerning innovations which are necessary in ABAP. The reason is S/4HANA is again based on ABAP. It's again running on the ABAP platform. It's available in the cloud and on premise. And to build the S/4HANA product, our colleagues had a high demand for new ABAP capabilities, because they wanted to exploit the HANA capabilities, the SAP HANA capabilities. Second, they want to build these Fiori apps running on mobile and on desktop. And third, the application shall run in the cloud. And that's why we means the ABAP platform, the core data service concept for the data model and to exploit HANA. We added SQL features. We added ABAP managed database procedures to exploit the HANA capabilities. Additionally, and that's the biggest step, of course, we added our RESTful programming model to build Fiori apps in a standardized and enterprise-ready way. And you must know there are thousands of developers in our S4 departments, and all those shall now build Fiori apps. Therefore, we need a mass-ready programming model, which is RAP. And we cloud optimized our services, our other platform services, so that now, for example, the operating task or the operation task are separated from the customer task. All this happened to support S4HANA. So that was the first step to build up a new development model in ABAP. The second step was then 2018 when we launched our SAP Business Technology Platform ABAP environment, Steampunk. Here we now allowed partners and customers to run and operate and of course develop cloud applications, software as a service offerings. And therefore we had to add to the stuff which we have already in our development tools in Eclipse, RAP, CDS and all that stuff. Now we added our cloud optimized programming language, which restricts the ABAP to the really cloud-able technologies, let's say like that, the cloud-ready technologies. Plus, we restrict you to the public API, so you no longer can use whatever you want concerning SAP objects. You have to use these public APIs and extension points. And that allowed us to, in Steampunk, in our ABAP environment on BTP, to do automated cloud updates of our ABAP platform, because the extensions and the SAP code are clearly separated. So that means now on Steampunk, we had already a cloud-ready state-of-the-art development model on BTP. And the last step was now to bring this development model not only to the BTP, but to S4HANA as well. And that happened this year, more or less. With embedded Steampunk, that was the nickname for that. We now brought this complete new ABAP development model, and I say it again, including ABAP developer tools in Eclipse, RAP, for data services, our RAP programming model to S4HANA, allowing to, when we start with the public cloud, allowing customers and partners to build with that new ABAP development model extensions directly in or on S4HANA. And the last step was now with the 2022 release, we provide the same in on-premise and in private cloud, so that now we have this new ABAP development model in all the different environments, be it SAP Business Technology Platform, be it the different S4HANA editions. And now finally, that was the time that we need, of course, a new name for all that, or this new way how to develop ABAP. To be honest, first internally, we thought about ABAP 5, since perhaps you remember the classic ABAP was ABAP 4, but then we thought +1 is not enough. So the change is bigger than +1. And additionally, we thought the cloud is really one of the driving forces behind all of that. And that's why we used the name ABAP Cloud, showing the umbrella around all these new capabilities which we added from S4HANA to the cloud. And that's why we more or less use now the name ABAP Cloud. Perhaps you have seen, because I've shown you the evolution, that all these different ingredients of ABAP Cloud, be it the Eclipse-based IDE, CDS, web, has been delivered years ago. So don't panic, you can use ingredients like that already perhaps in your system because it's in there, especially ADT I explained 10 years ago. We delivered that. So many of the stuff which is part of ABAP Cloud, you don't have to wait for 2022 release. You can start using these new ABAP Cloud ingredients today, more or less, in your system, if you're in an S4HANA system, for example. Yeah, so that's ABAP Cloud. To summarize, it's our new state-of-the-art, cloud-optimized, upgrade stable, ABAP development model, which we collected during the last 10 years, let's say, optimized for S4HANA and for the cloud. And which I promise the next answer will be shorter.
Okay, that was that was pretty complete. So I think we all have a pretty good understanding of what ABAP Cloud is now. But why do we need a new development model in ABAP?
Yeah, perhaps I covered that a little bit in my long speech already. So the classic ABAP was perfect, I think, during the last decade. So the SE80, the Dynpo stuff, and all the PBO, PAI, all the technologies which we had in there. But now it's about S4HANA. Now it's about browser-based mobile application. Now it's about cloud. And therefore, to be honest, WinPro-based applications and no separation at all between the extension and SAP is no longer state of the art, and it's for no means upgrade stable or cloud ready. Therefore, this step was absolutely necessary, that we now refresh more or less the programming model and the development model to comply to the S/4HANA and the cloud standards.
So question coming in from the chat. Let's see if we can address this real quick. This is from Lauren. We have ABAP Cloud on BTP, able to work with S/4HANA private, public, and on-premise. And we have normal ABAP still working on-premise and private cloud, question mark.
Yes, I can cover that if you want, Jens.
Yeah, please, so, you're in the flow.
I'm in the flow, that's good. So that's a good question. So ABAP Cloud is mandatory in the public cloud, meaning on SAP Business Technology Platform and in SAP S/4HANA public cloud. Here you must use ABAP Cloud. Classic ABAP is not available. Because that's the public cloud, we have automated updates, we can't use classic ABAP code. In on-premise, so in SAP S/4HANA on-premise or private cloud, we have both. You can use classic ABAP and you can use ABAP Cloud. So you can use both in parallel. You decide on ABAP object level, a set class as an example, if you want to use the classic ABAP or ABAP Cloud. So they are supported in parallel in the system. And you can choose and you select more or less on ABAP object level which development model you want to follow. But of course, we recommend in on-premise and private cloud, ABAP Cloud as well, since that leads to upgrade stable, more upgrade stable extensions, to a cleaner core, and you more or less prepare your extensions already for your next cloud transformation steps.
They're future-proof then.
Yeah.
And maybe also a good example here, some don't like it, but I really like it because it gives you a feeling, is if you remember the change of the Unicode. So it's exactly the same here. You can switch by object level like you switched for the Unicode flag. Now you can switch to the ABAP Cloud development model by each object.
Okay, so quick shout out to Andre, Soren, and Javier for jumping in the chat and answering some questions here. So yeah, thanks Boris and Jens. So Jens, what are the main components of ABAP Cloud, and what is the developer experience like when developing with ABAP Cloud?
So Boris has covered all buzzwords already in his speech, but let me try to give you a little bit more details and ideas what we think about ABAP Cloud and why we did it the way it is looking now. So as the name might suggest to you, it's all about building cloud-ready business applications, and that means two main principles for us. So when we give you this development model, first of all, of course, it's that you can build the same business solutions like you did in the classic on-premise world, now in the cloud. This means, of course, stateless is one guiding principle here. As also stated, this means we have to say goodbye to SAP GUI, even if we've heard some of you. From development perspective, already mentioned many times, this is really the right time to switch to ADT now and get your hands dirty with that, because it is mainly and only supported in our development tools in Eclipse, as stated in the public cloud offerings of S/4HANA or in the BTP. This is mandatory also to use our development tools in Eclipse. Then, of course, to build stateless applications, we have to give you a good programming model, which serves as a highway to build your application with the best TCD we can give you, and to build the services in the ABAP Cloud. This is the RESTful ABAP programming model we have for you. And there you can model and develop your business objects, your logic, and also, of course, SAP internally, we use this RESTful ABAP programming model in a wide variety in S/4HANA and adopting it more and more. So there are a huge amount of objects which have already been migrated to RAP. And this is really the go-to programming model. Second, it's not only building OData services and Fiori UIs on top of it, you can also use ABAP Cloud to build bare metal REST services. So it's not only about everything model. So we give you a huge development model. If the main highway is not enough, you can also build mainly REST services and develop just ABAP code there. We have also some nice and neat features in there to expose your model BOs or CDS views like as an ODB service, ODBC service, or for example, supporting the SAP INA protocol. And also very important to mention is that it's also not only about all exposing, which is quite important, but also consuming services, because in a cloud environment, you have different service lying in different stacks or offering, which you usually don't need to care just which service you want to use. And therefore, we have introduced also the service consumption model, which can just generate you the object that you directly can access any REST-based or OData service outside of the ABAP world or from another ABAP server, for example. Another important or second important principle is, of course, the upgrade stability, which Boris has mentioned. This means, first of all, these public APIs. So we have to separate our SAP objects, which we offer to you, and the things we need to use internally, and of course, your stuff, you code. First of all, if we now would give you access to all the objects, it would be tough for us to do an upgrade without interrupting your business or your application. And for that, we have introduced the so-called public APIs, which are basically all a kind of modern ABAP objects which we release, and those ones you can use. If you use your classic objects, you will get a syntax error if they are not released. But don't panic. Maybe you have already the right object by hand, or ADT offers you help here to recommend the real objects which you might want to use. So also here it's a nice way to switch to ADT. Need to know. Now I'm taking the big question, sorry, in the time. And let me, that I don't forget, of course, with that, your application is guaranteed to stay stable, even if we exchange the ABAP platform or do upgrades of the ABAP platform, your application will always stay stable. That's important. And on the other hand, we're also introducing modern development lifecycle support and opening up the ABAP to Git objects. So you can now develop ABAP and get your code into Git repositories, and they are getting a little bit away of our special snowflake smell we have from the past. And now you're able to do that. And for example, internally, we're also using this to do code reviews for our continuous feature development to really work on the Git repositories already. And last but not least, what I do not want to forget here is our well-known and over decade established reuse services. You probably all know from the classical ABAP world. And we have now enabled most of them already for ABAP Cloud development. Some APIs might have changed, but they are also ADT, and our documentation is there to help you. But these are really essential parts, and we know it to build cloud enterprise-ready applications. So overall, switch to ADT, get used to still code ABAP, maybe some new syntax, but we have trainings and things to help you. But basically just try it out and get your hands on dirty. It's made about building fast enterprise solutions as it was for the on-premise. Sorry for taking the time.
No, that's good. But we do have a lot of questions coming in here. I'll try to pinpoint just a couple here. Quick and easy one, I think. Is it possible to create new function modules using ABAP on cloud version?
Yes, function modules are still possible, but we really do not recommend them anymore. So it's really now also focusing, switch to ABAP OO and focusing on class interfaces. That's the target goal. We still support them, but we do not recommend them to use them anymore.
How about...
I think forms are gone, aren't they?
Yes, and macros, by the way.
Macros, okay.
Sorry for that.
How about migration options from traditional ABAP to ABAP Cloud?
You mean if I have a Dimbo-based application, how I can transform to ABAP Cloud? Is that perhaps the question which is behind that? So perhaps let's say it like that. If you are, as I explained, in the public cloud, meaning on our Steampunk offering, on BTP or in S/4HANA public cloud, then of course, anyhow, you have to use the ABAP Cloud model. And most likely you will start from scratch building your new extensions. Perhaps you copy paste some code and adapt it, for example, that you call the correct APIs and so on, but most likely you will build new extensions. If you are in on-premise or private cloud, then it depends if you are a greenfield customer, starting from scratch your installation, or a brownfield, meaning you convert your stuff to S/4HANA as an example, and then you have some legacy code left. And perhaps now the question is, okay, how can I transform legacy code, which I have, Windows, classic ABAP, and so on, to ABAP Cloud? Here, it really depends. It really depends how the code has been developed. And of course, the transformation to a new development model and to a new UI, especially from Dynpro to Fiori, is no easy step. Now it depends, is the code or your business logic really nicely separated from the PPO, PAI, so the flow logic, or is everything mixed up more or less? So if everything is mixed up and legacy, then the reuse will be minimized, let's say it like that. If it's clearly separated, then it's possible to integrate this functionality into the web programming model, and then there is reuse. But transforming a Dynpro-based application to Fiori is not an easy step, to make this very clear. We must really evaluate if it's worthwhile, or if, for example, the use case has changed anyhow, you want to have a nice mobile experience, then perhaps it's not the best idea to just try to reuse the old stuff. So it really depends on the use case and how, let's say, the quality level of the legacy code, how much can be reused.
We also have some ATC checks already available, which you can run also against your existing systems.
Exactly.
Which give you a feeling about what needs to be changed.
So there is a check which helps you to find out how far is my code away from our cloud compliant, let's say it like that. And you can use that in your classic on-premise system using this ABAP test cockpit check. But even after checking that, it's a case-by-case decision how to then do the changes. Is it worthwhile to do really refactor it, or is it better to start from scratch because you want to have a more modern appearance, or the use case has changed?
Yeah. For example, if you have done all your logic in the function call in the transaction itself during the save phase, you do not get that responsive UIs, of course, you want to have now in the cloud. So yeah, case by case, as Boris has stated.
But plus a recommendation, what we always provide when we talk with customers, which are on-premise or private cloud, at least for your new projects, if you do new extensions, then that's the perfect starting point to now use the ABAP Cloud capabilities. So then you use, please, the web programming model, core data service, use ADT, and so on. That's a very good starting point. It's not a good starting point to start with legacy code, but with new extensions.
That's also why we have that possibilities also now in the private cloud edition in the on-premise system, that you can really already start creating packages, for example, that are solely ABAP Cloud, and there you have then the new code, which is already good to go and can directly be transferred to a ABAP Cloud version without any disruption or changes. Good question.
So yeah, so one word answer for this one, guys. Are there any plans to enable VS Code for ABAP Cloud development? One word answer.
That's for you, Boris.
That's a totally new question, to be honest, Rich. I haven't heard that before. Our development environment for ABAP Cloud is ADT.
That's it. Moving on. Let's see here. Are we planning to use GCTS with ABAP Cloud? As of now, I still see normal transport mechanism being preferred over GCTS.
So yes, basically, if you're having Steampunk and BTP, so ABAP in business technology platform, it's already using GCTS and it's completely enabled. But for you as a developer, first of all, it just feels like if you're an ADT, you create an object, it's written to a transport. But if you release that transport, it's automatically pushed to a Git repository. And from there, you can go on then. In S/4HANA Cloud, we are not yet so far, but it's also on our list as a future item to switch to GCTS-based lifecycle management and then having you a Git repository where you have your code.
Let's see here. How can we calculate the amount of resources we need to run ABAP Cloud on BTP? How much memory do we need for that? How much memory do we need for what, in quotes?
It depends.
Yeah.
Easy answer, but not a really answer you're looking for. Basically, we are starting with 2 dimensions. Of course, we have the HANA compute units, which are available, and the ABAP compute units. The HANA compute units is all about the database storage you have available, and the ABAP compute units are about the amount of app servers you will get and how much memory they have. Basically, for production environment, we always recommend we have the basic installation with 1 ABAP compute unit, which means you have 2 app servers by default with 8 GB of RAM. And at the moment, this is pretty much enough to run normal applications without any stress. Afterwards, you can scale up, but this really depends then on your use cases and is a case decision. But you also have monitoring tools to see how much your app servers are stressed from each measure you want to have. So you can take a look at that and monitor that.
So some of these other questions that are coming in, I think might be addressed later down as we continue our discussion here. So let's get back to that for now. So I think we have a good understanding of what ABAP Cloud is. I think we understand the main components that make it up. And I think that we might have touched on this a little bit before, but where can ABAP developers use ABAP Cloud? It's not only in the public cloud, right?
That's correct. I think we had this already. So ABAP Cloud, as explained, is mandatory if you want to build ABAP extensions on S/4HANA, on SAP S/4HANA public cloud, or on our ABAP environment in the SAP Business Technology Platform. Then you have to use ABAP Cloud, no classic ABAP. And to be clear, the focus of ABAP Cloud was really first on public cloud, because here we really fill a gap in our extensibility portfolio. Before ABAP Cloud, in the S/4HANA public cloud, only the key user extensibility was available on S/4HANA Cloud, plus, of course, extensions on our SAP Business Technology Platform for side-by-side extensions. But it was not possible to code any ABAP directly on S/4HANA. And that was really a gap if you have tightly coupled extensions, and key user extensibility is not good enough because it's really a bigger development where you use a debugger, or you have a debugger, or refactoring support, and so on and so on. So here, ABAP Cloud, or Embedded Steampunk, is really a new capability, a really outstanding capability, which we add to S/4HANA public cloud. In on-premise and private cloud, where we provide now ABAP Cloud as well, we don't really fill a gap because classic ABAP is there. You can code ABAP in on-premise or private cloud. Here, it is about transforming from this classic ABAP development model to ABAP Cloud development model, to follow the clean core rules and to get to a more upgrade stable extensibility model, which leads to smoother upgrades, plus the extensions which you build are somehow future safe. We are already prepared for the next cloud transformation steps. So that's why you should do that. Just to ensure that the extensions which you build now in on-premise or in private cloud are future safe, prepared for the next steps if you do your next cloud transformation steps, and you don't have to refactor or get rid of them again. That's the main purpose why you should use our cloud in the private cloud on-premise. But as explained, both development models are available, classic ABAP and ABAP Cloud in on-premise and private cloud. The public cloud, only ABAP Cloud.
That's a big promise we give you. So we have this programming model, and who doesn't want smooth upgrades? And future-proof ABAP code, and that's exactly what we're introducing now.
So ABAP Cloud and on-premise, right? That sounds like a contradiction, right?
Yes, if I would hear that, I would agree. But, and as explained, ABAP Cloud was really designed to ensure that you can code ABAP for the public cloud with automated updates. That's behind that, more or less. That's why we introduced it. And now we provide the development model in on-premise and private cloud as well, so that customers who are still on-premise, for example, can prepare their code for the cloud world. That's the reason why we provide it in on-premise as well. So Jens provided this Unicode example. Perhaps we can use that to make this, to emphasize that. Perhaps you remember the time when ERP systems were converted to Unicode. And the first step was that you switch on the Unicode checks for your custom code to run all the checks which are necessary that you are compliant to Unicode. So for example, no offset lengths and strings and so on and so on. So that even before the actual transformation to Unicode of your ERP system, you will prepare your programs, your classes, your ABAP extensions to be Unicode compatible. And then the Unicode conversion happened in your system. The same is more or less, this is, somehow we have an analogy here with our cloud. You prepare even, okay, you're still on premise, but you prepare your ABAP code already here for the cloud world. And you get the first cloud benefits because your upgrades get smoother. That's more or less what you're doing. You prepare in on-premise or in a private cloud your ABAP extensions for the cloud, and you get the first cloud benefits in because you have smoother upgrades.
So, question from the chat: for tightly coupled extensions, we can now use embedded Steampunk, and for loosely coupled, we can use CAP on BTP? Question mark. What will be the use case of BTP ABAP environment, also known as Steampunk, now for S4 customers? And I think I know the answer to this, but I'll let you guys fill in the blanks. I think what we're offering here is choice, right? If you're an ABAP shop and you're touching mainly ABAP, logic underneath, and the choice is probably wrap on in ABAP Cloud as opposed to CAP. If you're stronger in JavaScript and all that good stuff, then I suppose it's CAP is the choice, right?
I think that's the perfect answer.
Yeah, maybe two more. It's a perfect answer with some additions which maybe help you. So basically, of course, loosely coupled, you can use whatever you want. The Steampunk BTP sweet spot is definitely, for example, built for partners building SaaS solutions, real SaaS solutions in the cloud, which we have a very good support nowadays ready for that. And secondly, for example, one main use case we see often that our customers is if you have a complete different user group than in your S4 system, it's also not a good idea to create 100,000 new users in your S4 system if they just need to switch to a website and do something. So this is also a nice sweet spot here.
Right.
But I think what Jens explained now, and that's totally correct, is the first decision is, of course, is my extension tightly coupled and shall run directly on the S4HANA stack, or is it loosely coupled and it shall run on the BTP? That's the first architecture decision. And if you then decide, okay, this shall run on BTP, then you can choose the programming environment. Then you can choose, do I go for ABAP or Java, whatsoever? And that depends then on many different dimensions. And one is, of course, your developer community, or what is your favorite language, or whatsoever. But then you have the choice. If you are on S4HANA, which is an ABAP-based environment, of course, then it's ABAP or it's Key. It's
going to be hard to run Java directly inside the transaction.
Yeah, exactly. So to summarize all of this, guys, so we've heard of ABAP Cloud used in public cloud, private cloud, on-premise. So what is the added value of ABAP Cloud in the public cloud for private cloud and on-premise customers? Jens, you want to take that one?
Yeah, try it. Of course, things we have already mentioned a couple of times already in that chat is building modern applications, stateless applications for web, for mobile, responsive UIs, with hopefully coming close to a TCD with our programming model here, as you have seen in the classic world with SAP GUI, just now in a cloud environment. The upgrade stability, but overall, what's also important and what we maybe have mentioned between the line and with the arguments is that we give you a common development model across all ABAP platform-based solutions. So just to give you a small insight, we have one code line where we develop our ABAP platform and we just ship them to all the products at different points in time. But if you now code ABAP Cloud, it will run on each of these installations without any problems. Of course, modulo, if you're in the S4 stack and you're using the sales order, this is of course not directly available in the BTP stack, but of course with remote access. But generally speaking, it's kind of the paradigm which lies behind it is we develop once and deploy it anywhere, which comes especially handy for our partner in the community.
Right.
That means to add to Jens' answer, we have in ABAP Cloud one programming language optimized for the cloud. So that means it's the same in the business technology platform when you use Steampunk, and it's the same when you use embedded Steampunk in S4HANA. So the same ABAP statements are allowed or not allowed. Plus the ABAP platform APIs for printing, number range, whatsoever, which are public APIs, are the same in both environments. So we really have the same development model concerning the allowed ABAP statements, concerning the provided public APIs of the ABAP platform in these different environments, which makes it easier, of course, or which more or less leads to one common development model. The difference is, of course, to make this very clear, if you are sitting on top of S4HANA, then you use local S4HANA APIs. That means you have a select on a CDS view to fetch more or less the materials and products, as an example. If you are on BTP, then you call on a data service, a remote API to get these materials or products. So that's the difference, of course, if you are sitting on top or if you are side by side.
Question coming in from the chat. Not sure if we're going to be able to answer this or not. How good is ABAP Cloud supporting multi-tenancy? For example, in CAP, it's more at the config level. We can make an app multi-tenant pretty fast. What's it like in the ABAP Cloud?
I think we can handle this especially for Steampunk events. I think that's one.
Yeah, so in Steampunk, BTP, as I said, this is completely optimized for SaaS solutions, and therefore it comes with default multi-tenancy support. And to make the TCO here as small as possible to do multi-tenant applications, we're using here the client, as you probably all know from the ABAP world, which has a really, really low footprint, and each tenant gets separated in a client. So therefore, and this comes out of the box, as you know, from the classical ABAP programming, where you already had that client separation. This is now built in also, of course, in the ABAP Cloud world. So full support for multi-tenancy apps, and also later tooling support to manage your tenants there in the BTP ABAP environment.
So that means that that's one partner solution using Steampunk and separating the different clients of this partner solution.
Exactly. So partner gets his Steampunk instance, and there the partners can subscribe to that solution, and each partner gets a tenant here, which means from our internal side a client.
Yeah, so let's get back to the core questions here real quick. Yeah, so we've been talking about clean core for a number of years now, right? So ABAP Cloud, that's part of this core clean core approach, right? It's late here.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you for that, Rich.
I think it's late in the US. Is that correct, Rich?
Yeah, 20 of 4 in the morning. I'm showing how tired I am right now.
With some applause for Rich for
clean
that
core
effort.
approach.
Yes, the question was about clean core and what is included. So clean core is about upgrade stability and that it's easy to get innovations in. And for that, we have our cloud extensibility model, which follows the clean core rules. And if you extend S/4HANA and you want to reach a clean core, meaning you use the options which are in the cloud extensibility model, then you can use OnStack, user extensibility, or ABAP Cloud, embedded steampunk, or you use side-by-side business technology platform. If you use one of those, then you go for a clean core. If you use classic ABAP on the stack, you're not going for a clean core.
Couple more questions coming in here. I think we should probably address this one.
Sorry for that. Just had to plug something in.
No problem. I think there's some confusion on this one. It says, since tables are not supported in ABAP Cloud, what's the alternative? There are multiple places where we specify tables in our developments. Now, I'm not sure.
Hopefully, that's not the table statement which is used in ABAP, but it's about a dictionary tables, isn't it, Rich?
I think it's actually selecting from tables. I think they're talking about selecting directly from tables as opposed to the released CDS views. Yeah. And I think the answer to this is it depends. If you're going after the data that's in standard SAP tables, then yes, you have to go through the released APIs. But if it's full on Z custom development, you could go straight against that Z table, correct, guys?
Yeah, completely correct. So definitely, of course, from SAP with the released API and upgrade stability, we have to protect the table that we are still able to make changes. And the API layer for you are the on-top CDS views, which are also commonly known as the virtual data model of the S4 world in our world. And secondly, of course, if you can create your own table. I just need to emphasize this because this also gets lost often. You really can build your own complete custom application from the scratch with a table and do selects with SQL against it or build an own CDS view on top of it. So this is completely open to you in ABAP Cloud because without any table, an ABAP wouldn't make so much sense.
So to make this very clear, you can go into ADT, use the DDIC tools to create a set table with columns.
Yeah, with columns
and collect data out of this table.
Yeah. So along those lines, what's the roadmap to increase the number of released objects that we can code against?
So here, the focus concerning the public APIs and extensions points, especially in S/4HANA, is focused on the public cloud scope. And these APIs are first built for SAP S/4HANA public cloud. And then, if feasible, they are reused in the private cloud and on-premise cloud. So that's how this works more or less. Additionally, and I think we have already, if I think about the ABAP platform, since Steampunk is out for years now, I think we have already good coverage for the ABAP platform layer concerning APIs and extension points. And if there are additional requests, then we hopefully will quickly fix this. So perhaps the bigger gap is on the S/4HANA side concerning those local APIs. And as said, they are focusing on the public cloud scope and then reusing this if feasible in on-premise. This will be extended step by step. We have now the first release this year, and then this will be extended with the upcoming releases. Plus, there is a dedicated process in place where customers can ask for new APIs. So they can explain, okay, in my extension use case, I need an extension point or a public API. And then this is evaluated at SAP in order to figure out if we can provide an additional API. Perhaps to add to that, in on-premise and private cloud, it's absolutely clear that we can't cover everything with the public APIs which are available today or in 2 years, to be honest. Therefore, we invented here the tier extensibility model. The first tier is really the cloud extensibility model, the pure model, how it is used in the public cloud. The second tier, here we wrap existing non-public APIs like a BAPI or function module or something like that. So here we already mitigate using APIs because we know in this broad on-premise scope and so on, there will be the case, we will see the case that APIs or extension points are missing. And then we have the last tier, the tier 3, where we collect the legacy code and all that stuff. All that is explained in extensibility guide, the ABAP extensibility guide, which we launched, I think 1 month ago or something like that. And I think which we will add all these resources after this session so that you can do a deep dive how this extensibility model works. But to answer that question, yes, SAP is providing more and more APIs, focusing on the public cloud. In the private cloud on-premise, we will add APIs as well. Plus, we have more or less a concept how you wrap existing non-public APIs and use those then in the cloud extensibility model. So releasing these wrappers to your web extension and so on, so that this fits into the extensibility model. Plus, we have a usable way to do these extensions, even in an on-premise world where not everything is perfect and not all the APIs are available.
So guys,
extensibility guys is a really good starting point. If you want to know more about that, really can only recommend you to read that.
And we'll link to that in the show notes as well. But really, I mean, we start throwing around new terminology and things like CDS and RAP and EML and ADT and all of these things. And a lot of time the first question that comes from ABAP developers is, hey, I'm a longtime ABAP developer. What should I learn to prepare for ABAP Cloud?
Yeah, right. The first step here is, of course, and already mentioned multiple times, install ABAP development tools in Eclipse. This is the first starting point overall. It's really the time now. And obviously then, if you're still coming from the real classic ERP world, where you have reports and function modules all flying around you, it's a good idea, if you haven't done that yet, getting familiar, of course, with the ABAP OO principles and everything with committed, for example, also ABAP unit testing, because this is really important in the modern development environment. It's essential, let's call it like that. And with that, if you have that as a baseline, then good knowledge coming then with CDS and SQL possibilities in modern ABAP and ABAP Cloud is really helpful to get to know these things. And it's also then a good way over to our RESTful ABAP programming model, which is based on CDS views and SQL statements here. And getting to know this RESTful ABAP programming model, I can only really highly recommend you to take a look at our openSAP course, which we have here. This is a perfect starting point, getting to know how this all works. And also this course will introduce you to the full stack development, meaning ABAP and Fiori UI development. So RESTful ABAP programming model, which works best with our Fiori elements. And this is where you can get then all things together. But one important message I really want to give you, and don't want to take too much time because we have a couple of questions probably. Everything you do is you can already start today also on older systems, because as Boris had stated, this is all the evolutionary approach. So ADT is around 10 years now. CDS came with the introduction of S/4HANA, so 2015 around, something like that. So probably you have systems where you can try these things out, CDS, SQL. So this all helps you getting in touch with it and get your hands dirty. Always a high recommendation.
Something related to a question coming in from the chat that's kind of related to this. Is it compulsory to learn BTP? Must we learn BTP? I guess the foundational things of BTP to fully understand ABAP Cloud.
With at the beginning or overall, for example, if you're only in an S/4HANA cloud system, you do not need to understand BTP, especially the administration part or things in detail. But of course, it's beneficial to know which services or additional services are available in BTP and how to consume them or call them. So this is helpful, of course, because there's still additional value there with reuse services available there. And it comes together as a whole picture. So in the beginning, of course, for pure ABAP Cloud development, building your small custom application or the extension, it's not yet mandatory, but of course, if you extend and build bigger applications, there's additional value here.
How about for customers and developers that deal with APIs, which are deprecated after 2 or 3 years? APIs may be deprecated after a POC phase of the project. How are they supposed to handle those situations? I don't think that
the question if we deprecate APIs. So
say again?
Is the question what happens when we deprecate APIs?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, what happens is that there's a guideline that we have a long time span switching. That first of all, you will get warnings if a API switches from public availability to a deprecation mode. And from that on, you will get warnings in your syntax checks and ATC checks that this API is not recommended to use. And you will also get the information which is a new API which you should use in the future. But and until the API is gone, did we ever do that? Just a question in the cloud. I'm not aware of that. So it's of course it's deprecated, but removed. I think we do not yet even have removed an API. So you see, as always, ABAP is built for your application to run a longer time span and not just about a POC of 6 months or something like that. This is really, these are the applications you can run in your core ERP world. And that's our main goal. And that's also our principle. We are building real enterprise applications, which just do not need you to change the technical things with each release.
There's one question in here that might be specific to the FICO module in S/4HANA, but we'll give it a shot anyway. Are we still using BTE and substitutions FICO module in ABAP Cloud? If not, can we assume that all these extensions have been replaced by enhancement points? So I guess we could probably expand this to all modules within S/4HANA and say that I think that we've taken the opportunity to build in additional hooks into the standard logic with BADI definitions, correct, guys?
Correct. So the classic way to give an example in the SD area that you implement user exits by modifying certain includes. That's no longer allowed in our cloud. For that, our colleagues provided extension points, and then you implement bodies to influence the SD logic. So yes, body is the new way to implement extensions to existing SAP applications, and the former extensibility options, which like user exits, modifications, enhancements, and so on, are not part of ABAP Cloud.
I had this as a point, but got it in the earlier question. But yeah, so body, and it's not such a new concept, by the way. So, but body is really ABAP Cloud, and it's of course an essential part of it. And
but that's of course allowed as well, that customers not only request APIs, but for example, an extension point, because more or less they see that it's very common to do a modification, and that's at that certain point in SAP code, then they may request a dedicated extension point there, but the body can be implemented.
So when we talk about public APIs, we always implicitly mean also all the bodies which are included. It's just maybe we are just used to our sub-internal wording, so maybe this helps.
And I think the reasoning behind that is clear. If you have a user exit or if you have modification, then you are really in the scope of the SAP application, including all the variables and all that. There is no interface really between the modification and the SAP application. only with a body, with a separated class, you have this separation.
Yeah, maybe also important because it sometimes gets lost from the basic understanding. If you're doing all that stuff in embedded steampunk in S/4HANA Cloud, you're really doing that in the stack in the same logical unit of work. If you implement a body directly in your S/4HANA system, it's not a separate stack or runtime or whatever hidden in that you're directly in the S4 system.
All right. Great information here, guys. Really appreciate it. We're almost out of time here. Where can we get more information about all of this stuff?
So as promised, we will add all the links to this YouTube session just to ensure that you would easily find those. The main resources, two blogs which we have written about the launch of embedded steampunk in S/4HANA Public Cloud and Private Cloud on-premise. So the new ABAP environment here covering more or less the ABAP Cloud stuff. Plus, we have this ABAP extensibility guide. I think this is about 40 pages, so it's really a longer reading, but I think it's really worthwhile because here you get everything concerning the different extensibility options you have, key user extensibility, embedded steampunk, ABAP Cloud, and of course the SAP Business Technology Platform, and how you can use that in the public cloud and how you can use it in the private cloud on-premise with the three-tier extensibility model. So that's, from my point of view, a very good starting point. Last, we will post links to our standard ABAP community pages, and we have dedicated pages for the ABAP Cloud embedded steampunk stuff and a section for the community to ask questions and so on that will be linked as well. And that hopefully this together will then help to give you a good starting point to get more information.
We really want to emphasize join the SDN community here. We're also monitoring it and trying to answer all the questions which come up with special experts which taking a look here. So please join us here.
Great, great. I don't see any more questions coming in the chat. Any final thoughts from you guys before we end for the day?
So perhaps I start and then Jens closes this. So take this as an opportunity from my point of view. So now we have ABAP Cloud. We always added innovations to the ABAP, but now we collected all the stuff which we have introduced in ABAP during the last decades for S/4HANA, for the cloud, and now we have one big new umbrella, a new development model, state of the art, to develop ABAP extensions, be it on S/4HANA or be it on the Business Technology Platform. And if you haven't over-invested in learning, let's say it like that, during the last years, now it's really time to invest into that learning. Because in all these environments, we have now ABAP Cloud, and that's obviously the future for ABAP development. And therefore, start now to invest into a learning of ABAP Cloud, the ABAP development tools, core data services, web, and all this is now really, let's say, it will be the standard how to develop ABAP. Therefore, it's really worthwhile to invest into learning these new, and new means 10 to 5 years, to be honest, ABAP innovations, so that you are prepared for S/4HANA and for the cloud. Jens?
Oh my God, how can I add things after that? So first of all, of course, thank you also for all of you joining. Thanks to Rich doing it. Just
in the middle of the night, yes.
Yeah, very appreciated. And I just can say, join us in our ABAP Cloud journey. Jump on the train. This is made for the future. This is really the heart of SAP, S4, ERP, and this is here to stay. This is not just a new buzzword. It's really the future of ABAP. And I'm happy that I can be part of it. And I hope you all join us here and yeah, have fun. That's also important for developers. Thanks a lot.
Great, guys. And I just want to thank all of the viewers out there. And yeah, so if you want more information, check the show notes. I'll post them sometime today. I'm gonna go to bed after this, but I'll post the links to the show notes later today, and then you can follow up and learn more about ABAP Cloud. Boris, Jens, once again, it's been a pleasure. Good talking to you guys. And really, thanks for the information and answering some of the community's questions here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rich.
Thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
All right.
Bye.
Bye for now, everybody. See you later.